So I developed, through my research, there's more, the report itself tends to be more fact-based, but I thought for the presentation today it would be helpful to think about some questions you might want to ask when you're developing your marketing plans and thinking about business-to-business competitiveness in the green tech market. You definitely want to answer the question that, will your product save the organization money? And wherever possible, say how much. That is definitely the driver in the United States. Does your product increase ROI? That's sort of on the same vein. But also, is it significantly better than current operations in environmental terms? So if they were to choose your product and you're marketing it as a green tech product, is it really impacting the environment? We've learned a lot in the United States that organizations are really focused in green in some ways, but also on how it improves their brand and their image. So if it doesn't really significantly help the environment at all, they might not see that added value that the green product is going to bring to them. Also, keeping yourselves aware of the competitors, or at least encouraging the clients to do so. Is it significantly better than what's out there already in cost, quality, and environmental terms? So you kind of take all the questions we just talked about, combine them all, and consider each one when looking at competition. Another important question that I think is interesting that you may not think about is, does it require sacrifices? What are you asking of an organization to take on this green technology? What kind of changes would it imply, whether it be in their supply chain or in their operations? How does it affect them, and how can you identify those sacrifices that they might have to make in order to invest in the product and in turn fill that gap and add value to them? And finally, will it easily translate into an improved image and reputation, and if so, how can you help? Once again, in the United States, we're seeing a lot of importance set by consumers and organizations. Organizations love the opportunity right now in this climate to show that they're green and to show the investments that they've made. But are they going to work very hard in order to do that, or can you easily show them how it can be marketed and how you can improve, add value in that sense, so that the marketing plan or the tools to market that they've made this investment are already kind of thought about and looked at. And I think that leaves us with Will Sanders.
Okay, so in making the business case for green tech products in general, many boardrooms are going to be looking at two factors. Ultimately, what does the product create in terms of financial value, and what's going to be the lasting environmental impact? However, there's a vast array of products, and ultimately the way each organization weighs these different products, and even these two goals that sometimes can be competing or at least involve trade-offs, will be somewhat different. This framework here is just an example of how many firms might look to weigh the financial gains associated with the project and the impact to the environment. The different nodes you see here really just represent different options, potentially different products or ways that they can green their operations, their supply chain, etc. Along the y-axis here, you'll see net present value. Ultimately, what's the product either going to cost, or what kind of value is it going to generate for the firm? And then along the x-axis, in this case, it's measuring environmental impact in terms of CO2 emissions, but you could supplement a different environmental factor there. In looking at these nodes, really going from point 1 to point 2, what does that represent? That represents significant environmental impact with a somewhat incremental decrease in net present value, but ultimately a positive one. It's still creating financial gain for the firm. However, in going from 2 to 3, you're really kind of getting a marginal impact. What is that marginal cost associated with that next level of environmental gain? So again, depending upon how your firm that ultimately you're pitching the product to, or these organizations looking to market their products to, depending upon how they weigh these two alternatives, or the trade-off between these two goals, which aren't meant to be mutually exclusive, but there can involve some trade-offs associated with certain products. They may be more or less willing to go from, say, nodes 2 to nodes 3. I'm now going to give you 3 quick business examples here in the United States of how different firms have implemented both small and large-scale environmental strategies in greening their operations. First one, U.S. Food Service Incorporated. This is the second largest food logistics company in the United States behind Cisco. Their operations consist of a number of storage facilities, really a distribution network and trucks, to ultimately deliver food products, from the farmer, from the producers, to 250,000 customers nationwide. So as you can imagine, those kind of operations, they're really looking to do two things in getting more green. They're looking to green their trucks, the actual logistics delivery system, and then also their distribution centers. So some of the things they've done, in terms of the trucks, trying to reduce fuel costs and the emissions from those trucks, they've installed speed control devices, reached out to their drivers through training, and they've also installed sophisticated routing software that takes GPS technology to ultimately make the best routes to begin with and then create alternate routes on the fly, allowing them to ultimately deliver their products faster to the end consumer, reduce labor costs and the associated fuel costs. And then also, just in terms of their lighting in their facilities, even small things you may not directly think of as green tech, and depending upon your definition, just by changing the lighting in their facilities, they've managed to reduce those costs by 30 to 40%. Next one, the University of South Carolina. Here, there's a good example of some small and large-scale things they've done. Ultimately, again, something that you may not think of as directly green tech, going to LCD monitors from legacy systems. What has that done? It's not only taken up less space, but ultimately they're much more energy efficient. And by changing those monitors, depending upon exact usage and electrical costs at the time, could save upwards of $1 million with a simple change in that technology. Now, in their overall broad strategy to get more green, they were one of the first universities to develop a green dormitory that's LEED certified. They did this in 2004. Some of the things involved were hydrogen fuel cells and solar arrays. The solar arrays to heat the water as it comes in, turf roofs to make buildings more insulated and reduce some of the electrical costs associated with cooling, and even just implementing high efficiency appliances. What's been the impact? Ultimately, the construction was of the same cost that it would have been, except they're getting a $50K annual benefit associated with their utility expenses. And their goal here, obviously, as an educational institution was, we have these 500 impressionable students staying in the dorm. Let's show them from day one that sustainability and green business can be good business. Final example, Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are, but it's a private beer company out in California. They've been very aggressive in their green strategy. They've been able to leverage a number of federal and state subsidies to invest in projects on a much grander scale than some of these other examples. Particularly their fuel cell and solar programs have allowed the facility to be 80% energy independent, and during the peak season for solar, the facility actually pumps power back into the grid. Transportation, majority of their trucks run on biodiesel, and the interesting thing there is they actually create it on site. They've invested in technology that allows them to convert waste beer into ethanol on site. And again, being a brewing company, they generate 1.6 million gallons of waste beer annually. So prior to this type of technology, they were just using that and putting it into feed for the agricultural industry. And now it's allowing them to be much more efficient in their operations as well. And also the first company to invest in an electric hybrid tractor trailer that's recently come online. But ultimately, their larger projects, the solar and fuel cell stuff, was incredibly costly, but with the subsidies and the gains they're getting in terms of ROI, these things will be fully funded within 6 years, and then at that point, begin generating substantial value for the firm. So with that, any questions for our group?